Hello, I'm Evan. And I'm not the person you probably think I would become. I used to be a privileged kid, living in luxury, surrounded by the love of my family. But behind that exterior, I was nothing but a failure, someone even my own family didn't trust. There were moments when I thought I'd forever be trapped under the shadow of that wealth, forever labeled as a spoiled rich kid. But then, one day, I lost everything. And that moment, when I had nothing left, turned out to be the moment I found my true self. Before I continue telling you my story, if you feel even a little inspired by what I've shared, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notifications for the Heart Glow channel. This is where we'll share inspiring stories and journeys of overcoming adversity to reach success. Thank you for being here, and now, let's begin this story. Now, let me tell you my story. I am the son of one of the wealthiest families in this city. From a young age, I was sheltered in a life of abundance. My family had a mansion with vast gardens, expensive cars, and lavish vacations. But one thing I never had was respect. My family, especially my father, always saw me as a useless child, someone of no value other than the money I brought them. My father was a tough man, always focused on finance and achievements. But me? I was just a son, always living in the shadow of other people's accomplishments. I was never considered an important part of the family, except as the heir to their wealth. Family meetings were nothing but discussions about numbers, about how to make more money. And me? I was always on the outside, feeling useless, with nothing to be proud of. My family's wealth never brought me joy, only left me feeling emptier than ever. I used to ask myself, if I didn't have money, would I even mean anything to them? My father, despite being a powerful figure in business, never stopped criticizing me. He said I only knew how to spend his money, but didn't know how to do anything useful for myself. Every time I wanted to try something new, he'd show his disbelief, even mock me. You only know how to spend money, but you don't know how to make money. His words were like knives cutting into me every time I heard them. My father always saw me as useless, unworthy of respect. He never gave me the opportunity to prove myself. Every time I tried to do something, he would find a way to stop me, saying I wasn't smart enough, not patient enough, not capable enough. So, I was always living in his shadow, always listening to his criticisms, never getting the chance to show who I really was. But every time he said that, part of me felt angry, and another part felt disappointed in myself. I kept asking, am I really that useless? Although I knew my parents would never respect me, I decided to prove to them that I could do it. I began trying things in fields that my father always considered unworthy of me. I studied, worked tirelessly, and believed that if I showed them I was good enough, they would change their view of me. But instead of encouragement, I got criticism. Every time I did something, they just laughed, calling me a naive child who didn't understand the real world. Their words hit me like waves crashing on the shore, making me feel more and more alone and like a failure. I tried to prove I could do it, but the more I tried, the more useless I felt. My efforts were never acknowledged, and all I got in return was disappointment. Sometimes I wondered, would I ever find my own path, or was I just chasing after something meaningless? My life had already been full of difficulties, but the worst was yet to come. One day, I got caught up in a huge scandal when people I thought were close friends suddenly turned their backs on me. The press began criticizing me, making me the target of the world's scorn. The rumors, the malicious articles, caused me to lose everything. But the real shock came when my father declared he was cutting off my financial support. He said I didn't deserve the money he'd been giving me all these years. At that moment, I stood there, in the massive mansion, staring at the material things I once considered everything, but now they were just meaningless objects. I had nothing left but emptiness and the pain of realizing that, in my father's eyes, I was just a useless child, not worthy of his continued support. For the first time in my life, I felt loneliness and despair when I realized I had nothing left to hold on to. After my father announced the financial cut, I stood in the middle of the empty mansion, feeling the coldness around me. Everything I once called mine now had no meaning. The mansion, the expensive cars, all those things were just lifeless objects, unable to fill the void in my soul. I looked at the paintings, the luxurious items around me, but they all became meaningless. I realized that, no matter how much money or wealth I had no one really by my side. My friends had turned their backs on me, my family had abandoned me, and I was left all alone. This was the moment I understood that I wasn't important to them, I was just a tool to make them money. Standing there in the empty mansion, I felt like I no longer had any value. In my despair, I decided to leave the mansion, the place where I felt suffocated and alone. I wandered outside, not knowing where I was going, just feeling the coldness of the world out there. It was the first time I truly felt the chill of life. The coldness of someone who has nothing left to lose, the coldness of someone no longer wrapped in wealth, but only surrounded by loneliness and despair. I walked aimlessly, not knowing where I was headed, just feeling the emptiness in my heart. For the first time in my life, I felt like I didn't exist anymore. No family, no friends, no money. I was just a stranger, wandering in a world I had never truly understood. If you feel that this story touches your heart, don't forget to hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you won't miss the next inspiring stories. At Heart Glow, we share stories of kindness, change, and valuable life lessons. Be a part of this loving community and help us spread positive messages. After leaving the empty mansion, I had no specific destination. I just walked, wandering through streets I had never noticed before. My life had once been wrapped in a bubble, where I never had to face hardship or struggle. The fancy streets, expensive restaurants, luxury stores, these were all part of a world I knew. But today, I ventured into narrow alleys, poor neighborhoods I had never dared to step into before. The people here live hard lives, they don't have what I had, but they have something I didn't, strength and determination. The looks I met on the streets had no pity in them, but instead were serious and confident. This was a world of people who never gave up on fate, and I suddenly realized that I was just a stranger, a useless person with nothing to hold on to. I felt lost among the people I once considered inferior. But now, I admired them. This poor neighborhood seemed to give me a new perspective on life, and it was then that I realized I needed to change. Among the narrow turns in the neighborhood, I met her. A young woman, standing at a street corner, holding a mobile coffee cart. She was unlike the girls I used to meet in my world. She didn't have a flashy appearance or a proud demeanor. But her eyes, strong and determined, made it impossible for me to look away. She stood there, confident and calm, as if the entire world couldn't shake her. Her hair was messy, her face bare, but there was an extraordinary charm about her. I immediately realized she wasn't someone who lived off wealth or the support of others. She lived on her own strength, needing no one to take care of her or help her. She sold coffee to make a living, and every day, she worked hard to build her own future. I stood there, watching her, and suddenly felt ashamed. This girl, with just a small coffee cart, had a strength and independence that I couldn't even have. I felt small and useless, but she made me want to approach her, to talk to her, and learn more about her. She must have recognized who I was. A rich kid, someone who never had to worry about money. Always living in luxury, but completely unaware of the struggles others face. I wasn't a rich kid anymore, but I couldn't deny that I had once lived in that world. She looked at me, her gaze sharp but without judgment. She quietly poured me a cup of coffee, handing it to me without saying a word. I was taken aback, not understanding how she could treat me like this, when I had nothing to offer in return. "Thank you," I muttered, accepting the coffee she handed me. She just smiled softly and said, "No matter who you are, everyone deserves to be treated like this." I felt a strange emotion rise within me. This was the first time in a long while that I felt like I was being treated as a real person. Not as an heir, a useless rich kid. No matter who I was, she didn't care about my past. She only cared about the present, and all I needed right then was a cup of coffee to clear my mind. After receiving the coffee, I sat down next to her, unsure of what to say. But then, she started talking. She told me about her life, about the tough days when she had to take care of everything by herself. She didn't have help, didn't have a rich family like mine, but she had something I didn't: persistence and a determination to never give up. She told me that every day, she woke up early to prepare everything for her coffee cart. Some days, she only sold a few cups, but she never gave up. She said that as long as she could work every day, as long as she tried every day, one day she would have everything she wanted. Her stories made me think deeply. She wasn't just a coffee seller, but a strong, independent woman who could overcome any obstacle without relying on anyone. Meanwhile, I, a spoiled rich kid, couldn't even take care of myself. She taught me an important lesson: that effort and perseverance are the keys to success, not wealth or luck. After a moment of silence, she looked at me and said bluntly, "If you don't know what to do, start by learning how to work." Her words hit me like a slap in the face. She didn't hesitate to point out my weaknesses, not hiding the truth. I had lived my entire life without ever knowing what hard work was, what it meant to work for a living. All I did was spend money and live in indulgence. But this girl, despite living in difficult conditions, always knew how to work and give her all. Her words made me feel ashamed, but also awakened something in me I had never known before. She wasn't just a coffee seller, she was the model of strength and independence I needed to learn from. Work first, those words kept ringing in my head, as a reminder that if I wanted to change, I had to start with the most basic things: work hard and learn to be independent. My sense of pride was deeply shaken, but it became the greatest motivation for me to change. I realized that if I wanted to regain my self-respect, I had to learn how to truly work. I stood up, deciding to do something I never thought I would do. I wanted to ask to work as a server at her small coffee shop. Though I knew I would face embarrassment working a job I had once seen as menial, I understood that this was my opportunity to start over, to learn the things I had never known. I was no longer a rich kid, no longer pampered. I was just a man who needed to learn how to work to survive. And from that day on, I decided to work tirelessly, never give up, to rediscover my true worth. On my first day working at the coffee shop, I felt like I was stepping into a completely unfamiliar world. My hands, which were used to signing invoices and contracts, now had to handle very different things: cups, towels, soap. I looked at my hands, feeling strange and a little awkward. I used to think this job was a small matter, a simple task anyone could do. But now I understand that when you've never had to do these things, you realize it's not as easy as you thought. Washing cups, mopping the floor, and serving customers require carefulness, patience, and especially respect for the work, no matter how small it may seem. Every cup of coffee I serve, every cup I wash, is a challenge I have to face. It's not just working with my hands, but working with my own patience. I used to think I was too precious to do these things. But now, I realize that these seemingly small tasks are teaching me the greatest lessons of my life. Each day at work, I faced uncomfortable glances from the regular customers in the shop. They looked at me as if I were a failure, a rich kid who had fallen from grace. Some didn't hesitate to mock me, teasing, "This rich kid has really hit rock bottom." Those words felt like arrows stabbing at my pride, making me feel humiliated and embarrassed. I used to live a life of luxury, never wanting for anything, but now, here I was, standing in a small coffee shop, doing tasks I never imagined. Every comment from a customer was a reminder that I was no longer the pampered rich kid, no longer the one everyone admired. But I couldn't give up. Even though their mockery broke my heart, I refused to turn back. I decided to stay strong, not let their words knock me down. I wanted to prove to myself and those around me that I could do it. And no matter how much they mocked me, I would stand up and work hard. Things weren't as easy as I had imagined. In the first days at the coffee shop, I made every kind of mistake. The cups I brought out broke, I spilled coffee on customers' clothes, dropped spoons, and spilled water everywhere. Every mistake I made was criticized by the shop owner, who scolded me mercilessly. Once, I even spilled a hot cup of coffee on a customer's shirt, making her change clothes right there in the shop. I felt like a failure, unworthy of this job. Every time I made a mistake, I felt disappointment rise in my chest, as if I could never do anything right. But I knew that every mistake was a lesson. Surely, if I didn't make mistakes, I would never learn how to do things correctly. I had to overcome my shame, my confusion, and ask myself, can I really do this? But instead of giving up, I decided to keep trying. Those mistakes only made me stronger, teaching me patience and how to improve little by little. There were times when I really wanted to quit. I thought maybe I wasn't cut out for this job. Sometimes, I felt so tired and discouraged that I just wanted to give up. The mockery of the customers, the mistakes I kept making, all made me feel like I was worth nothing. But then, every time I wanted to quit, I would remember the determined look in her eyes, the girl who had believed in me from the moment I walked into this shop. That look was like a powerful source of motivation, making me hold myself back and keep fighting. She never told me what to do, but with just one look, I understood that I couldn't give up. She showed me that no matter how hard things get, we must persevere. And no matter how bad life may get, we can still stand up and start over. I couldn't fail because she had placed her trust in me, and I couldn't let her down. The more I worked, the more I learned things I had never even thought about before. I began to understand that work isn't just about getting it done, but is a continuous process of learning. I learned how to endure, to take criticism without overreacting. I learned how to listen to feedback and understand that every criticism is an opportunity to grow. The girl never spoke words of encouragement, but every action of hers made me realize that in life, no one can progress without listening and improving themselves. I was no longer the pampered rich kid, but a man learning how to work from the simplest things. I started to improve day by day, even if just in small steps, but I knew I was on the right path. And gradually, I felt more confident, no longer ashamed or insecure about doing these tasks. One late night, after the shop had closed and I finished cleaning the floor, I sat down and couldn't stop crying. That was the moment I realized something profound. I had never truly worked in my entire life. Everything I had done before was just sitting in cushioned chairs, enjoying the fruits of others' labor. I had never understood the hardship of manual labor, never felt the exhaustion but also the pride that comes with finishing a long day of work. Now, standing at the bottom of society, doing tasks I had once considered beneath me, I finally understood that every job has value, and only honest labor can help us grow. I cried because I couldn't believe how indifferent I had been to what others had to endure. But in that moment, I felt a great change in my soul. I was no longer the rich kid of the past, but a real man who understood the value of work and effort. If you feel that this story touches your heart, don't forget to hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss out on the next inspiring stories. At Heart Glow, we share stories of kindness, change, and valuable life lessons. Be a part of this loving community and join us in spreading positive messages. During my time working at the cafe, I began to notice opportunities one had never paid attention to before. I was not just a server, but gradually, I started thinking about ways to improve the cafe. I realized that the cafe could do more than just serve a few simple types of coffee. First, I worked on improving the menu, adding new and unique items that combine tradition with modern trends. I started doing market research, learning about food trends and popular dishes and drinks that customers wanted to enjoy. But it didn't stop there. I also thought about promoting the cafe on social media. A simple but very important idea, using Instagram and Facebook to promote the cafe. In the past, I always thought these platforms were only for young people or those in online jobs. But now I understand that in the modern world, online media is the way to build a reputation and attract customers. From being just a cafe employee, I began to see the business potential within myself. My ideas didn't just revolve around daily work, but also about creating value and innovation for the cafe. And from these ideas, I began to see a great opportunity for the future. When I had these ideas, I decided to share them with the girl, the one who trusted me and gave me the opportunity to work at the cafe. At first, she wasn't very confident in my suggestions. She looked at me with a skeptical eye. Then laughed faintly and said, "You're just a spoiled rich kid, you don't know anything about business." But I didn't give up. I patiently explained what I was thinking, about how to refresh the cafe, from improving the menu to using social media to build the brand. After some persuasion, she decided to try implementing a few of the ideas I had. We began changing the menu, adding new dishes and unique drinks. Then, I began to notice a small change. Although she still didn't fully trust me, she had given me the opportunity to prove myself. That was an important turning point in my journey. At that moment, I didn't know that those small changes would lead to a much bigger opportunity. Things started changing when we implemented the new ideas. The cafe, once a small destination, suddenly became much busier. Customers started coming more frequently, not just because of the good coffee, but also because of the creative and unique food and drinks we offered. The most wonderful change was on social media. We began to see a rise in followers, and people started sharing photos of the cafe and our dishes. From being an unknown cafe, we suddenly became a favorite destination, famous on platforms like Instagram and Facebook. People started coming not just for the taste of the coffee, but for the experience we provided. Every photo shared on social media was proof of the success of the small ideas I had put forward. I couldn't imagine that a small cafe could undergo such a big transformation just from simple but decisive decisions. Over time, I realized that success isn't only for the wealthy or those who own many assets. Anyone can build a brand if they have the will and know how to leverage the opportunities around them. When the cafe began to gain popularity, I realized something important: I had business potential. In the past, I always lived off my parents' wealth, never having to worry about finances or work. But now, standing on my own 2 feet, I realize that observation, creativity, and making the right decisions are the keys to success. The ideas I proposed weren't just about changing the menu or using online media, but about how I saw opportunities, leveraged the cafe's strengths, and created real value. I began to realize that to be successful in business, you don't need a huge fortune, but you need to recognize the opportunities around you. If before I only knew how to spend money without knowing how to make it, now I understand that developing an idea, utilizing resources, and harnessing strengths are the most important factors for success. I felt proud because, in the end, I had found a part of my talent that I had never realized before. Even though I had achieved a small success, my family still didn't recognize it. They still looked at me as a failure, a spoiled rich kid who had nothing but luck. Once again, I heard mocking words from my parents: "It's just a poor man's game." These words felt like a bucket of cold water poured over me, but instead of discouraging me, it made me more determined. I understood that they couldn't comprehend what I was doing because they only saw success in material terms and couldn't see the spiritual value I was building. The mocking words from my family only made me feel more compelled to prove myself. I wasn't doing this to please them, but to prove to myself that I could succeed on my own ability. And gradually, I realized that true success isn't about recognition from others, but the satisfaction you have within yourself. I had been and was still creating value from my own strength and ideas. Finally, I made an important decision in my life. I would no longer beg for help from my family. I didn't want to live off their wealth anymore. I would build my own brand and create my own career. This decision wasn't easy, because I knew I would face many challenges, but I was mentally prepared. I would work hard, continue to innovate, and improve myself. I wouldn't let the mocking words from my family or the challenges outside stop me. I believe that with perseverance, with never giving up, I will build a strong brand, and one day, they will see me as someone who has truly succeeded. After the small ideas at the old coffee shop brought some success, the girl and I decided to expand. We didn't just want to keep the old shop but wanted to create a new, spacious, cozy, and more special space. A cafe that wasn't just for serving drinks but also a place where customers could relax, chat, and find joy. But we didn't have enough money to do it. Unlike the rich, we had to figure things out ourselves, borrow money, and even use the little I earned from the old shop to start. The girl and I both lacked experience, but we weren't afraid. I clearly remember each step into the new cafe: the large space, dim lighting, simple yet cozy wooden tables and chairs. Everything was a big challenge. The cafe didn't have strong capital to grow, but we believed that with determination and a love for what we did, we could overcome any difficulty. Still, I couldn't help but worry about the future and whether we could stand firm in this entrepreneurial battle. Day by day, our cafe faced countless difficulties. One of the biggest challenges was money. The girl and I didn't have enough funds to keep everything going for long. We were in debt, and every day we had to figure out how to spend wisely. It wasn't just that, customers weren't always easy to please. Some came with strict and difficult demands. They weren't satisfied with the drink quality, didn't like the space, or even complained about our service. Those criticisms made me feel deeply disappointed and sometimes made me want to give up. But that wasn't all. We also had to face dishonest competitors. Some other cafes started playing dirty, tarnishing our reputation, bad-mouthing the shop, and doing shady things to sabotage us. These competitors gave me headaches, but they were also challenges that helped me realize that in business, not everyone plays fair. I couldn't avoid these shocks, but these challenges taught me many important lessons about patience, perseverance, and how to maintain faith during tough times. During these moments, I looked at the girl beside me, and it gave me the strength to keep going. There were times when I felt exhausted, discouraged, and wanted to give up. The difficulties kept piling up, the debts were overwhelming, customers were dissatisfied, and competitors always tried to make things hard for us. One evening, I sat in a cafe, looked around, and saw the debts weighing heavily on my shoulders. I felt like I had failed, and the desire to give up surged inside me. But then the girl, my only companion on this journey, looked at me and said, "If you give up, you'll always be a rich kid." Her words were a strong shock that woke me up. That sentence made me realize that if I gave up, I would go back to being someone who had nothing, just depending on family wealth and the help of others. I didn't want that. I had decided to change, and I couldn't go back to being a failure, living off what I had. Those words stuck deeply in my mind, and they became the strong motivation for me to keep going. I couldn't let myself become someone with nothing but the flashy memories of the past. I had to fight to build a different future. Since deciding not to give up, I started learning how to do everything I had never done before. I learned how to negotiate with suppliers, find ways to cut costs without compromising the quality of service. I began raising funds from friends, acquaintances, and even startup support organizations. Every day, I worked from morning until late, without time to rest, just to keep the cafe going. Despite the difficulties, I never stopped. I knew that if I gave up, everything I had done would be in vain. During that time, I had to learn a lot, from the smallest things like how to build relationships, how to face challenges, to how to work efficiently and keep the passion burning. The long days and nights were exhausting, but I knew I couldn't stop. I had to keep striving, keep fighting. And after each challenge, I felt myself growing stronger and more resilient. One day, while I was still working hard, an article was published about my story. It was a write-up about my journey from a rich kid, wealthy but lacking life skills, to a determined cafe owner. The article told the story of when I was abandoned by my family, to when I decided to start over, not relying on money but building a career with my own efforts. The article quickly spread online, being shared and commented on widely. My story wasn't just about a man who failed and then rose again, it was also a story of perseverance, of never giving up, no matter how tough life gets. I never imagined that my story could inspire so many people. And this only made me more determined. I knew I was on the right track, even though the road still had many challenges. After the article was published, my family started to look at me differently. My parents no longer mocked me like before. They started calling, asking how I was, and even offering words of encouragement. But I didn't need their praise anymore. I had proven that I could succeed without relying on them. I had done what they never thought I could do. I didn't need recognition from my family anymore because I had already proven my worth. I had created a new future, a career I could be proud of. And with every step I took, I felt more confident in myself. Looking back, no one could have imagined that from a small coffee shop, lacking in everything, the girl and I would be able to build a famous coffee chain that has spread across America. Every time I walk into a new branch, it feels like I'm stepping into a dream that I created. It's not just about the coffee cups or the delicious food, but about our story, a story of perseverance, of never giving up, of failures and getting back up, of difficulties and how we overcame them. Our coffee shop has become a symbol for those who believe that no matter how tough the start is, if you stay determined and keep trying, you can overcome it. The girl has been with me throughout this journey, and together we've faced every challenge to reach the success we have today. Every day, I see the smiles of our customers, the satisfaction in their eyes, and I know that everything I've done was worth it. This journey isn't just mine, but belongs to those who believed in and supported me, especially the girl, who has always been by my side, step by step, helping me see the light at the end of the tunnel. Looking back, I realize that it's not money or wealth that is the most important thing in life. If you don't have self-respect, strength, and true companions, everything you have is just fleeting. I once lived in a world full of material wealth but lacked real values. I used to think that money was everything, that with money, you could do anything. But when I lost everything, when I had to start from scratch, I realized that self-respect, strength, and people who truly believe in you and stand by you are the most important things. The girl was the first person to believe in me when everyone else thought I was a failure. She helped me realize the value of persistence and effort. Without her, I don't know if I could have overcome those difficulties. And through that, I also realized that when you find a true companion, someone who genuinely cares and shares with you, you will always have the strength to rise no matter what challenges you face. Money can be lost, but self-respect and strength will always stay with you. On the grand opening day of our biggest branch, I saw my father's silhouette standing outside the door. He came, though he didn't say much, but his gaze made me realize one thing: he was proud of me. This was the first time he shook my hand without contempt, without criticism. Once again, I felt the change in his heart. In the past, he always saw me as someone with nothing but glamour, someone who spent money without knowing how to make it. But now, I had proven to him that I could stand on my own 2 feet. I was no longer a useless rich kid like he once thought. His whole life, he taught me that making money is what has value, and today, I had proven to him that I not only had money but also the value of hard work and perseverance. My father isn't someone who easily shows his emotions, but in his eyes, I saw pride and trust in me. That feeling was truly deep, not because I needed his recognition, but because I knew that I had changed myself, no longer living off others. When my father shook my hand, I couldn't help but feel a little emotional. But I also realized that no matter how many thanks or how much pride he expressed, I could never forget that I had lived under my family's shadow for too long. Everything I've achieved today wasn't because of my family's help, but because of my own strength and determination. I once thought that only family could help me succeed. But now, I've proven to myself that no one but me can decide my future. I no longer live under my family's protection. I've stepped out into the world, faced challenges, and won with my own abilities. And that is what makes me prouder than anything. I don't need to rely on my family or anyone else to succeed. I've done what I've always dreamed of, creating an independent and sustainable future. As I stood on stage, seeing the admiring gazes of the guests and customers, I felt an immense sense of pride. I could not only feel the success but also the growth. At that moment, I said to everyone, I lost everything. To find myself. This journey hasn't been easy, but every step has had its own value. I lost everything, my family, my reputation, my wealth, to learn valuable lessons about life, the value of work, and the strength of perseverance. In this journey, I found myself, a strong, resilient man who always rises, no matter how tough things get. It's those failures, those tears that have forged me into a new person. And today, I stand here, no longer a useless rich kid, but a man who can be proud of what I've accomplished. This is the moment I truly feel alive, truly strong. Finally, I looked at the girl, the one who had always been by my side throughout this difficult journey. Without her, I wouldn't have reached this point today. She was the one who helped me regain my faith. Who lit the fire inside me whenever I felt hopeless. Smiling at her, I knew that together, we had written an inspiring story, a story of perseverance, of love, and of never giving up. She is the perfect companion, and today, with her by my side, I truly understand the meaning of success. This is not just my personal success, but the success of two people who have overcome every difficulty together. And I know that in this life, I will never have to live under anyone else's shadow again. This is my life, which I have written, and I will continue to write new pages, full of hope and motivation. Life doesn't always go as we expect. Sometimes, we have to lose everything to find ourselves. I once was a rich kid living in protection, unaware of the true value of work. But it was those failures, those falls, that helped me grow. I no longer live under the shadow of my family or anyone else. I've written my own life, with my own sweat and tears. Now, looking back on that journey, I feel immense pride. Not because I have everything, but because I didn't give up. Every day that passes, I realize that success isn't the end goal, but the process we go through. The challenges, the difficulties are the precious lessons life has taught me. If you are at a crossroads, feeling lost, never forget that life can always change. You might fail today, but if you keep standing up and moving forward, you will create your own story. Don't let anyone decide your fate, because you are the one who holds the power to write your future. If you feel that my story has touched your heart, if you are also seeking motivation to overcome life's struggles, don't forget to hit subscribe on the Heart Glow channel. Let's continue this journey of self-discovery, overcoming challenges, and writing your own inspiring story. Together, we can create a strong community, where each story is a source of motivation, and every step is a journey never walked alone. Subscribe now, and don't miss out on new, inspiring, and powerful videos, so every day becomes a new opportunity to be better and stronger. Thank you for joining me on this journey. I'll see you in the next videos.